All right. Let's try this again. Hang on, I gotta get into character. Elbaf! Ah! Elbaf time? Elbaf, we're in Elbaf now, right? Elbaf? Elbaf, I bought a helmet! Elbaf! Elbaf. Alright, not yet, hold on. Just got it. Oh, this helmet is heavy. Okay, alright. Alright. I'm keeping the Ned Stark cloak. Alright, I'm keeping the cloak, alright? Alright then. So, yeah, One Piece, chapter 1125 review titled, What Constitutes Death? This is in reference to a line that Vegapunk had a couple chapters ago when they were discussing York's plan and they were doing the whole memory wipe thing. I believe it was Shaka or Pythagoras was one of them that said, like, hey, just one thing, Stella, what exactly, what constitutes death for us? Because they're having this conversation right in front of a giant brain in a jar. So they're like, how does this work for us, right? We are continuing on with Oni Child Yamato in the Holy Inari Shrine Pilgrimage, Volume 13. Yamato has officially left the Kibi region and is now in the Kuri region of Wano. This is a big region. This is the region Odin ruled over as the daimyo. This is the place the Straw Hats first arrived, like Luffy first met Tama and Tenguyama or Sukiyaki and Amagasa Village here. Bakura Town is here, and Odin Castle is here. Obviously, Yamato, looking up to Odin as a role model, visits Odin Castle. It was a very nice castle originally, and then it was destroyed by the fire during the flashback. You know, Toki gave her prophecy in front of the castle and everything as it was burning down. And then, you know, Kaido eventually destroyed it years later with a Boro breath. And when all the scabbards and the Straw Hats were hiding there. So it was a big chunk missing out of it for a while. But it looks like construction efforts are underway to restore the castle, do a little bit of a renovation to make it look really nice. Obviously, it makes sense why Yamato would go here. In fact, actually, not the first time Yamato has been here. Yamato was the person that found Odin's logbook outside of the castle when Yamato was like a little kid, right? He was looking around the place and there was like a river outside of the castle that someone had threw the logbook into. I guess we still don't know exactly who did that. And so Yamato found it and had it as his keepsake, you know, for Odin and everything like that. Well, anyway, shows up here. The castle is being worked on and Yamato's talking to some of the like construction crew, and Minatomo, the guy that was Frankie's like sensei in Wano, the dude with the nails, he shoves the nails up his nose, which I just hope he has a tetanus shot. I don't think that's very, you know, hygienic, but whatever. He is missing. We don't know where Minatomo is, so this kicks off the subplot in the Holy Inari Shrine Pilgrimage. Yamato has to find the construction worker. So we'll see how that goes. I hope Minatomo is safe and sound somewhere in the area. Okay, so getting into the chapter, we have a lot of stuff to unpack today. A lot of stuff to go into. So, we do not see the Straw Hats in this chapter. We do not see the Giants. We are not in Elbaf. I guess right now we're in the post-Egghead, like, chapters. So we're cutting around to see what's happening in other parts of the world. But really, we're just seeing what's happening in Egghead in the immediate aftermath with, like, all the Marines and the Cypher Pole and everything like that. And then we're also going to see some stuff going on in Marijua. And then we're going to close out by seeing some stuff in the Kamabakka Kingdom, or the Revolutionary Army base, okay? So we're at Egghead, and the Marines are all waking up now, okay? So people are, I mean, some people look like they're still unconscious, but they're getting back up. The Cypher Pole agents that were rescued from the basement and on the ship, some of them are up and moving around, so they're just kind of beginning to take stock of the situation. And honestly, the Marines and the government kind of got through Egghead with a big haul. They have a big chunk of the Pacifista Mark IIIs. A lot of them were destroyed, but a lot of them were not. Ethan disabled a bunch of them using his like icy colds of the underworld powers, but I don't think that like permanently destroyed them. So they have a bunch of Mark IIIs. They have the Seraphim. They've been like, hey, load the Seraphim up after they're finished charging. So I'm assuming they've gotten the Seraphim out of the sea stone bubbles somehow, and they are currently charging. I'm not really sure how that works, if they have like a power outlet on the back of their neck or something. They just like, you know, are they solar powered? Like, how does it work exactly? I'm not sure. But the Seraphim are charging, and they have the Mark IIIs, and they have the mechanized Seabees, so they have a lot of future tech now. The government does, right? We see Lucci, and we see Kaku, and Hattori is there as well. And so they're beginning to board the ship. Lucci's all bandaged up. He looks pretty wounded. That giant gash from Zoro is on his chest. They're walking in, and the Cypherpole agents are like, "Oh, Mr. Rob Lucci. Oh, it's so good to see you. Oh, Kaku as well. We're so glad you're alive. What happened to Special Agent Stussy? She was with you guys, right?" And Lucci doesn't even, like, he doesn't have a whole explanation here. He's just walking on the ship, and he's just like, KIA. Let's go. You know, so like killed in action, she's dead. Kaku's looking very somber back there. He's got his top hat, like, with the brim down, and he's just like, Hattori. Hattori is completely neutral in this situation. Lucci and Kaku looked like they just had a really intense conversation about the Stussy situation. Hattori's just like, I wasn't part of this. You know, anyway, I don't think Stussy's dead. I don't think Stussy is dead. I think what happened here was that Stussy left the command room, like, you know, Kaku did the Lassie thing. We're like, get out of there, get out of here. We never liked you. Just leave, get away. We're not friends. So Kaku did that. Stussy started crying. She left. Eventually, Lucci makes his way back to the command center and is like, okay, where is she? I'm killing her. Where is she? And Kaku's like, she ran away, man. So, okay, where did she go? I'm not gonna tell you. Damn it, Kaku! It's like, listen, man, like, look at all the crap that's going on here. Look at everything that just happened, all right? Can we just, like, let her go? And I don't know if it's a thing where Kaku and Lucci maybe even came to blows over this, but I think Kaku did not tell Lucci where Stussy went or where she is, and I don't know, convinced him, but I think Lucci just got to the point where it's like, fine, whatever, she can live, I don't care. Next time I see her, she's done though, all right? And so now they're walking back over to the docks with all the government agents and everything, and like, hey, where's Stussy at? She's killed. Shut up, she's dead. All right, like it's kind of like something like that, right? And Kaku's in the background, just like a disappointed child after having an argument with a parent about something, you know. So I don't know. I don't think Stussy. I mean, like I always used to say, Stussy was actually with the Straw Hats. Like she's gonna pop out of the sunny and be like, "Hey guys, I was here the whole time." In this chapter, we see something else going on, so I'm thinking of another location Stussy might be right now. But for right now, yeah. I mean, at the very least, maybe it's just out of respect for Kaku and just the fact that they're friends. Lucci is like, okay, fine, whatever. I'll say the official story is she died, but, you know, next time I see her, right? Like, it's that kind of situation. That's at least the vibe I'm getting from this, right? So they're boarding the ship, and then we cut to another Marine warship. Keep in mind, there's just, like, a graveyard of ships. Like, the Marines sent, like, 100 ships of varying size to Egghead. A good chunk of them are destroyed in the water, right? But there is a battleship that's still there. There's a few. And, Saturn, J. Garcia Saturn has now called all of the vice admirals, all 9 of the vice admirals, into an office to kind of debrief them on the whole situation at Egghead. So Saturn is there, and he's got his cane and everything, and he's like, we've obtained everything we set out for, truly. We have York, we have Punk Records, we have the power station for the Mother Flame. You know, this result is actually more than adequate if it wasn't for the one problem we faced. And of course, that's referring to Vegapunk's message. But aside from that, they've actually kind of came out of here ahead of the game, honestly, right? And so we have all 9 of the Vice Admirals lined up. You got Hound, who didn't really do much of anything. You have Pomsky, who was taken out by Bonnie. You have Urban, the guy with the top hat and, like, the underbite. He kind of has, like, the oars underbite. I don't think that guy did, like, anything in this arc. Urban's thing is, he had, like, the top hat, and he can kind of use the top hat like a cannon sort of thing. Like, the top hat as, like, fires artillery shells or something. I don't know, but we really saw nothing of him. Doll, Bluegrass, they're back to their original forms, finally, after the effects of Bonnie's age fruit. That knocked them into their, like, child forms for a very long time. Bonnie's fruit is very powerful, apparently. Then we have Doberman right in the center. He was the vice admiral that we knew for the longest before then. Like, Doberman was like at Marine 4 in the Ennie's Lobby Buster Call and all that stuff. Then we have Tosa, the big beard guy. Red King, the dude with the jowls. And then we have Guillotine on the end. Guillotine's the guy with the chakram in his hair that he like threw around. Also, in the anime, he has like ketchup and mustard hair. He has like red hair with like a yellow streak in it. He has ketchup and mustard hair. So all the vice admirals are assembled and they're in a line. Sorry, Saint Garcia Saturn, we're so sorry about what happened, we let Jory Bonnie and Kuma get away and the Straw Hat got away, please let us go to Elbaf, please give us permission to sail to Elbaf and bring in these criminals once and for all, allow us to redeem ourselves, sir. Like, all these vice admirals are like, because it's like, hey, we've mobilized 100-something battleships and 9 vice admirals, we had Kizaru with us, and even though they succeeded with all this like tech that they were out to get, they still feel like they failed, So Saturn is like, no, forget Elbaf. We better not. We cut around the world for a while, and then we go to Elbaf, and the Straw Hats are sailing away from it. Like, see ya, Elbaf! Man, that was a crazy adventure, wasn't it, guys? Yeah, it sure was. Oh, well, onward to Lodestar. Onward to Laughtail! It's crazy that Usopp managed to get that holy hammer Mjolnir, and Usopp just holds up the giant hammer like, yeah, crazy, right? I can't believe I had to defeat 6 giants in one-armed combat in order to defeat them, in order to get the hammer. It's like crazy, yeah, story for ages. Anyway, let's get going. Anyway, no, Saturn is like, look, no, we're not going to Elbaf, right? Which kind of makes sense. I mean, you don't want to screw with Elbaf. It is a giant island filled with giants that have a giant army. Made of giants, all right? There's a reason the government hasn't just waltzed in there and taken over the place yet, all right? It's been mentioned over and over again, and we just saw a small fighting force. We saw the giant warrior pirates, or the remnants of the giant warrior pirates, at Egghead, and how much destruction they were able to bring, right? Imagine an organized army, like multiple crews of giant warrior pirates, all multiple warships. It's been mentioned they are the strongest army in the world. You do not want to mess with the freaking giants, right? Now, I don't know if that has anything to do with this, or Saturn is just tired, and he's just like, you know what, no, we're not going to Elbaf, The failure of which I respond to, it's not the failure of Bonnie getting away, or the Straw Hats, like, that's an issue, obviously, but, like, the bigger failure is the message that Vegapunk broadcasted to the world. That was an unexpected disaster, right? Going along with that, the Iron Giant surfacing was also something that we did not expect. That was another failure that, could not have been foreseen. Or rather, couldn't it have? It's ironic, really. And then we have a flashback from Saturn's perspective 200 years ago. So remember, at least a couple of the Gorosei, I remember it was Mars. I think all of them really recognized the giant. I think Mars and Saturn specifically mentioned it, but no, they remembered the events 200 years ago when the Iron Giant climbed up the wall and attacked Marijois. And that's because Saturn was there. So we cut to 200 years ago at Marijois, right after the Iron Giant has like rampaged and now it's powered down, right? So remember, originally it was supposed to be scrapped, but it somehow ended up on Egghead. So here's the story of how that happened. So there were a couple of scientists even back then. I mean, I'm assuming J. Garcia Saturn was still the head of scientific defense and development even 200 years ago. So there were scientists, not on Vegapunk's caliber, but there were scientists about 200 years ago that were there to try to like learn about the world and study things in it and stuff like that. So the scientists are talking to Saturn here, and the scientists are like, but Saturn, we've already been given orders to scrap this giant and destroy it. And Saturn is like, no, I want you to study this. I will take any responsibility should it be uncovered. Just do as I bid. This is the future of technology right here. I am certain it will prove to be a great asset to the military of the world government. And of course, the scientists are ecstatic about this because, like, this is like futuristic sci-fi shit right here they're dealing with. Like, oh, of course, thank you for the opportunity. We will study it. So what happened is the scientists 200 years ago took the giant Emeth away from Marijois, began to study it. They eventually died, passed it on to the next generation, passed it on to the next generation. Eventually, it wound up in the scrapyard at Egghead. And Vegapunk began to study it, all right? So there's the story with that. The whole reason why they just, because, you imagine they could have just, like, dismantled it right there. We know the Gorosei are strong enough in their yokai forms to, like, rip the arms and shit off of Emeth. They could have destroyed him into scrap metal. They could have just thrown him over the side of the red line and he could have landed in the ocean, although that has other issues, because, like, the fishmen and the merfolk might have found it. But still, like, it was directly because of Saturn that it ended up on Egghead. So he's beginning to realize, like, oh, the irony here, It is because of my hubris that the giant ended up powering up on this island at this exact time and helping the Straw Hats get away and shooting off Joy Boy's hockey nuke and everything like that. I also find it ironic, and because we don't know how old Saturn is. We know at least 200 years, but was he alive during the Void Century? Because it's interesting, because the Void Century was filled with a bunch of technology that was super advanced, created by the Ancient Kingdom. The Ancient Weapons are an example of that. So Saturn is here being like, this iron giant is the future of science. Well, it's actually the past of science. And it was like the reason why science was diminished over the centuries was directly because of the world government. So I'm starting to think Saturn hasn't been around since the Void Century. I think he joined a little later, and so he doesn't really know about what all the technology existed during the Void Century. So he sees this thing, Emeth, 200 years ago, stomping around Marijois like, Joy Boy! And it's like, oh my goodness, this is a giant robot. We need to study this. This is the future. It's actually the past, but, it's the future, right? So Saturn is sitting there and he's just like, it remained dormant for over 2 centuries. And now it moved to protect Straw Hat. Why? So Saturn is kind of deep in thought there, and then Doberman. Let's have a round of applause for this man right here. Doberman, Vice Admiral of Marine HQ. Let's have a loud clap for Doberman, all right? Because he steps out amongst all the Vice Admirals and he asks the question. The question that is on all of their minds, but all of them are like, I don't know if I should bring this up. This is one of the Gorosei. But maybe having this conversation together, maybe there's like the rapport is like, okay, Saturn says we did do a good job, I suppose. We got all the stuff we needed. We have the Mark IIIs, we have the CBs, we have Punk Records, we have the Mother Flame, we have all this stuff. York is working for us. We killed Vegapunk. We failed a little bit, but, maybe Saturn's in a good enough mood for me to talk to him about this. So Doberman is like, Saint Saturn, as a soldier of the world government and of the Marines, I apologize for the failure of the broadcast of Vegapunk's message, but I have one question weighing on my mind. You said allowing Vegapunk's message was a failure, so does that mean there's just some truth to his words? And, yeah, Doberman might be dead now. We don't know for certain. He might not be dead, but Saturn gives him the death glare. He's just like, Saturn's thinking about the Iron Giant, like, He's like, Mr. Saturn, was that message true? Gives him the death glare, and then Doberman's like, oh, no. And he gets blasted in the head. Now, his head does not blow up like all the other, like, lower-ranked Marines do. His hat gets knocked off, and he's bleeding quite a bit. He just looks like he got shot in the head, and he's just like, ugh, and he falls over, and he lands on the ground, and Guillotine is like, no, Doberman, no! By the way, fun fact, Doberman always in the manga does not have a left pupil. He's not like, it's not like he's wearing an eye patch or anything. He literally just does not have a pupil in his left eye. I don't know if he's like blind in his left eye. Maybe it's a glass eye or something like that. In the anime, they will depict him with 2 pupils sometimes, but in the manga, he only has the 1. So I'm not really sure what's up with that. But he also is covered in like scars and bullet wounds all over his body and everything like that. So he is a Vice Admiral. I don't know if he's dead. He might be able to tank that pretty well. We don't see his head blowing up like we saw the lower-ranked Marines. So I think Doberman will be okay-ish. Yeah, that happens. So, hey, I got to applaud Doberman, though, because he was the guy that's like, hey, man, if if what Vegapunk said is true and the world is flooding, you know, we're the Marines. We should probably know about that. You know, we were supposed to protect civilians and everything, right? Like, we're gonna, he was, because that's probably what Doberman was gonna mean by that. I mean, Doberman was probably not like, because he seems like a pretty straight-laced Marine. He seems like the kind of Marine that would be like, hey, is the world flooding? Because if so, we should probably help the civilians. That's what he would do with that information. I don't think Doberman is the kind of guy that's like, is the world really flooding? I gotta get out of here. Screw the Marines. You know, I don't think he would do that. I think he was trying to do it for the right reasons to try to get as much information as he could about this. And Saturn just gave him the death glare. But anyway, we now are cutting to the Labophase where we see York, and she is panicking because the cloud machine is now going haywire. The giant, like, wine bottle in the Fabriophase that's pumping the island cloud, you know, creating the Labophase, is now going out of control and pumping out a bunch of island cloud at once. And the Labophase begins to, like, go higher and higher into the atmosphere, and York is like, wait, what's going on? Sky clouds, where are all they coming from? So she takes out like a laser rifle, like a pulse rifle, and she's trying to like stop the clouds from coming up and trying to stop the lab from rising, but it doesn't make it in time, and the clouds just keep billowing and billowing, and the top half of the Labophase, so just punk records. So we have the two halves of the egg. So we have the first half of the egg on the bottom where the lab is, like the command room and everything was in, and then we have the upper part, which is punk records, and only the top part of the egg manages to float away into like the stratosphere. It's going up and up and up and up, and begins to float away from Egghead. So it's like an emergency, like, you know, and York is like, oh, I couldn't stop it in time, right? And so York looks up and is just like, he's taken punk records. No! All right, so we'll catch back up with that at the end of the chapter. We'll find out exactly what's been going on with that and the Vegapunks. But as I'm sure a lot of people have gleamed by now, yeah, you know, Vegapunk's not dead, right? Okay, all right, there it is. So now we're cutting to the holy land of Marijois, and panic is ensuing in the Celestial Dragon City, ladies and gentlemen. Their food stores are reaching critical mass. This is sad. Now, I want everybody to prepare yourselves for the upcoming panels, all right? If you are sensitive to just some of the worst conditions that mankind can rot, you need to turn off this video right now, okay? You need to turn it off. You need to skip like 5 minutes ahead or something like that, because it's going to be bad, all right? So first off, we have a poor celestial dragon sitting in his palatial manor in his dining room, with his solid silver and gold cutlery sets, with a giant dining room table that could seat 75 people. And he's sitting down for his third dinner of the evening, ladies and gentlemen. And he ordered beef. You know how it is, right? You got that hankering for some beef. Chef, so he calls upon his loyal chef, and he's like, Chef, prepare me some beef. And he sits down after waiting a whole 10 minutes for his food, ladies and gentlemen. 10 minutes! And he is served salmon instead. Now, I know what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking. This has to be a mistake, right? This can't be real. And so the Celestial Dragon is like, why did you serve me salmon? I ordered the beef. But it wasn't a mistake. They don't have any beef. They don't have any filet mignon. They don't have it. All they have is the finest freshly caught salmon and tuna. Oh. So he takes out a gun and shoots the chef. That's the punchline. Oh, man. So then we see the other... Oh, we're not done yet. We see some more celestial dragons. It's like, oh, this has gone too far, I say. Yes, indeed. I missed a meal yesterday. You know, the celestial dragons aren't having their 3 squares a day. You know, like they have... This is the menu for the celestial dragons. They wake up, they have their morning tea, which consists of, like, you know, breakfast, like a whole hearty breakfast. And then they have proper breakfast. Then they have brunch. Then they have lunch. Then they have dinner. Then they have supper. Then they have their midnight snack. This guy lost one of his meals. And he's like, I wasn't even allowed a midnight snack last night. It's like, oh no, we're being treated like common street rats up here. Yesterday, I ordered filet mignon and they gave me a ribeye. Gah, we can't live like this, man. Is there a famine? Will we starve? Now, you know what's even the more messed up thing here? So the Tenryubito are not the only people that live in Marijois, right? They obviously have a lot of servants and, like, the guards and things. So, because the Revolutionary Army has stopped all of the food, like they've destroyed the granaries and all of the food ships that are arriving there are being like destroyed. But yeah, the Tenryubito are feeling the effects slightly, like ever so slightly. But what about all those, like, well, first of all, what about all the slaves that are living up here, right? So they're probably not going without. They've been without food for probably weeks at this point. There's also the guards, you know, like the pin-headed guards and stuff like that. They also probably haven't had any food, right? So the Tenryubito are complaining that, like, it's like, I was only able to have 5 meals yesterday instead of 6, whereas, like, every other person that isn't a Tenryubito in Marijois has probably been starving for, like, the last week or so, you know? Like, that's the situation, right? So, if anything can be gleaned from this situation, though, it's at least nice to see that the Tenryubito are, like, panicking, and they're just like, oh, no, is this a famine? What's gonna happen? Oh, no! You know, because they're just pieces of shit, and we want to see them suffer, but a lot of other people, like the servants and slaves, are suffering also along with the food shortage up there. Like, that's also happening, right? We cut to the Room of Authority, where we have the 4 Gorosei hanging out. We have Peter, we have Top Man, we have Marcus, and we have Ethan. But then, you know, Saturn is still back at Egghead. But now we have Saint Figarland Garling arriving in the room, and he's wearing a sleek new suit. He's got a suit, he's got a nice cloak, which I have to say, the cloak, it doesn't have the, you know, the fur on it, but it's a nice cloak. He's walking in with his cloak, and he's got his cool saber, his little sword there, his awesome moon hairstyle and everything. He's walking in, and the Gorosei are sitting there and like, Garling, what are you doing here, man? I have new orders. And the way he's referring to them in the original Japanese is in a very casual sense. Like they are equals. All right? He's like not doing like, oh, yes, my lords, great Gorosei, please beseech me with your presence. No, it's just like, it's like, hey guys, what's up? I'm here. I got orders from up top. And then Top Man is like, new orders? From whom? We didn't issue any orders. And he's like, what are you saying, Garling? You tread lightly. Don't, you know, you watch your tone, man. You know, we still outrank you. By the way, this is important to mention. Like, Garling is a very, very highly positioned Tenryubito, okay? He is the supreme commander of the God's Knights, all right? So if we're gonna go through, like, the hierarchy up here in Marijois, like, let's start with Sakazuki. Sakazuki's the fleet admiral at Marine HQ, right? So he's there. Above the fleet admiral, you have the commander-in-chief of the world government. That's Kong. Kong controls the Marines. He also controls the Cypherpole agencies. He used to control the warlords before that system was abolished, so I guess there's less work for Kong to do right now. Commander-in-chief of the world government is probably the highest position like a commoner in this world could achieve, right? Because Kong is not a Tenryubito or anything like that. He's not nobility. That's probably the highest position you could have, all right? Then, I'm assuming above Kong, you have the Tenryubito themselves. More specifically, you have the God's Knights, which are the group that, you know, Dragon discussed. We don't exactly know how many there are. There might be like 10 or 11 of them, right? And then the God's Knights are probably ranked higher than regular Tenryubito because they're like the enforcers of the Celestial Dragon City. And then their supreme commander is Saint Figarland Garling, who is probably Shanks' daddy. So, unless we find out somebody else out there, I would assume it would go Garling as the Supreme Commander of the God's Knights directly to the Gorosei, and then Eam on top of that. Now, there's also servants and guards that are scattered around. A lot of people brought up a few chapters ago when Eam was having the panic attack from the hockey nuke. There was a servant that came in, like, Lord Eam-sama, are you okay? We've seen that, like, Eam has servants. Like, I don't think Eam is going to be, like, you know, changing out the towels in his bathroom or preparing his own meals if Eam does shit or eat. We're not really sure how this works. But Eam does have servants, okay? So excluding them, that are like a select few that come in to assist. Yeah, in terms of the hierarchy, I guess it would go Garling, then the Gorosei, and then Eam at the very, very, very top as the supreme ruler of everything. So Garling does not like, I mean, he's below the Gorosei, but not by much. But that just shows how like egotistical and arrogant the Gorosei are. It's like, Garling, the supreme commander of the God's Knights, watch your tone with us, young man. You know, like kind of like that, right? Well, Garling is having none of it. He's probably been waiting for this shit for a while. He's just like, hey, the Vegapunk now known as York, he takes off his shades. The Vegapunk known as York is under my direct purview from now on. And I was just named the new defense science god a short while ago. And Marcus is there like, oh, don't tell me that means. It's like, yep, the world is heading for turmoil and a rebellion of unprecedented level. So he just plops himself right down there on a couch or one of the chairs in the Room of Authority. The Room of Authority is so funny to me. It's this giant cavernous room where the rulers of the world live, and they only have like 2 couches and a chair. And a tiny little, like if you look at the size of like the table that's in their room, it's like a tiny little end table. Like that's all it is. This room is huge. You could install a bar or like a little serving area for like a buffet or something. You know, like you could put a freaking swimming pool in here. This place is huge. A hot tub at least. Next time we see the Gorosei, Garling is gonna change some shit around here. You know, the Gorosei are way too old. You know, they're all like several hundred years old. Garling is a hip and young 82-year-old. You know, he's gonna change things around here. You know, I want to see, he's sitting down and he's like, let us work together, my fellow elders, to make the world a better place. Is this where you guys like live? Like there's then an echo is like, yeah, this is the Room of Authority. This room is huge. You can put like anything in here. You could literally install an indoor water park in here. Well, I suppose we could. I just, you know, we only need it. We don't need to eat. We just need chairs and a couch and a tiny little end table to put wanted posters on. Yeah, no. If I'm being part of this, we're installing a hot tub. Okay, hold on. I'll make some calls. Next time we're going to see the Gorosei all hang out in a hot tub together. It's like, you know what, Garling? All smoking cigars and just like, you know what, Garling? I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Dang straight. Anyway, it's a very dramatic moment where the other elders are really taken off guard by this because they know what this means. Eam has given orders for Garling to become the new god of science and defense. And they know what that means for Saturn because it's the Gorosei, ladies and gentlemen. The Gorosei. 5 elder planets. Not the Rokusei. Not the, I guess, Yongosei? 4? It's not the 4 elder planets. It's not the 6 elder planets. It's the 5 elder planets. By the way, I don't know, does this mean Garling's name is going to change to, like, Saint Figarland Saturn? Like, is that how that works? Because there's a naming scheme now, and it's like Garling kind of ruins it. You know what I mean? It's just like, ah, yes, the 5 elder planets. Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter. And Garling. The planet Garling. Yeah, so I'm thinking maybe the Gorosei, because this indicates a couple of things. By the way, there have been replacements before. I don't think this is the first time in 800, 900 years this has happened, all right, where somebody has replaced a former Gorosei. I think this has happened before. Now, the current crop of the Gorosei, they might have been around for several hundred years, so it probably doesn't happen super often, but they might not be the original Gorosei. In fact, if we ever see a flashback to the Void Century, if we will at some point, I would like to see the original Gorosei. And I bet Ethan was probably there at the very beginning, but all the other 4 might be different, and they were all added at different times, and they might have removed others and put them in. So I think they do have titles. So I think that, you know, in this case, Garling's name might turn to Saturn, you know, in this regard here, right? We don't know exactly, but yeah, so maybe 1 or 2 of them were here the entire time, but like Peter looks pretty young compared to the rest, so maybe he was recruited a little bit later. Maybe Top Man came a little bit later, Marcus as well, right? But that indicates that definitely 100%, right? So now we're cutting back to Egghead, where we see what's becoming of Saturn now that his job... They took his job! Garling took his job! Alright, so, Saturn is there, and he's, you know, giving his debrief to the Vice Admirals, and all of a sudden he just starts clutching his throat. He drops his cane, he's like... and, like, all of the black viscous fog is, like, shooting out of him. All of the evil is, like, being drained out of him. His body's getting all shriveled up. And he's like... And the Vice Admiral, like, Doll is freaking out, like, what's going on? Saint Saturn, he's one of the rulers of the world. We can't let him die. Well, not anymore, but we can't let him die. It's just like, oh, it's some sort of disease. Saturn, please tell us, what do you have medication? Do we have to, like, give you, is this like an epinephrine pen? Like, what do we do here? He's just all shriveling up, and like all of this black fog is, lightning is firing off of him and shit. And he begins to age. Remember, like, the Gorosei are all hundreds of years old. So he begins to age like 100, 200, 300, but like the years are hitting him like a train right now. And he's just like, oh, God, no! You know, and so he's just thinking for a moment about Eam, and he's like, I guess Eam is communicating with him like telepathically directly into his fucking mind. And he's like, Saturn! Joy Boy was behind that escape, and you allowed it to happen. It was your fault. You also kind of did the whole thing with Bonnie and Kuma, so you've really been a fuck up in this situation right now. I'm taking my power back. Now, Eam, have my say. And he says Eam. He says it out loud, like, Eam. I don't know if the Vice Admirals are going to connect the dots here, because they're in the middle of panic, you know, because like one of the elders of the world that they're sworn to protect with their lives is like dying right in front of them. I don't know, but after this is all said and done, after all of the panic has worn off, you know, because they all have like Hound and Urban and Red King, they're all like, oh God, what the hell's happening to them? You also know that shit can't smell good. You know, all the black viscous evil coming off of him, it probably smells horrible in there, right? You know, anyway, and so he's like rotting away, it's like his teeth are falling out, and his flesh is like slogging off his body, right? But after all this is said and done, Doll might be hanging out like smoking like 3 cigarettes at once, like, that was wild. Never saw shit like that before in my life. And maybe Bluegrass is sitting with her, and like, what did Saturn say before he turned into a freaking skeleton? He shouted something. It sounded like emu. What is that? You know, maybe something later. Maybe they can connect the dots there with that. But no, he does shout it. He does say, Emu, no! Have mercy, please! Im does not have mercy, sir. And he just screams out one more time. A giant explosion occurs on the ship. It breaks shit. Like, it destroys the office. Like, it's like a bomb going off. Just boom! They get blasted out. And when all of the smoke settles, you know, Vice Admirals get up and they look, and you see Tosa there, and he's just like, what? Saturn, are you there? And then you just see a skeleton just slam on the ground, and he's just dead. Dead as disco. Dead as a doornail. There's no way skeletons are getting back up in one piece. Meanwhile, somewhere else in the world, on their way to Elbaf, Brooke is there sipping tea, and he's just like, I sense a disturbance in the Force. Another skeleton has joined my family. Brooke knows whenever a new skeleton spawns in the One Piece world. Brooke knows. Alright, yeah, it's gonna be rough. I mean, he's gonna have to get back up after this, you know, the skeleton, you know, Saturn. I mean, he's gonna be a skeleton from now on, right? Oh no, he's dead! Right, oh shit, right, yeah, sorry. Okay, so, yeah, that's what happens when you piss off Ebe. Yeah. The Gorosei don't go out very often, and they probably don't participate in things very often, but whenever they do and they fail, Ebe doesn't let them forget it. No. Ebe will just... He'll straight out, like, suck out your power. Didn't I mention this before? I think I did. Roll the clip. Eames probably going to be a little bit peeved over what happened. Yeah, he's going to be a little bit upset about that there. People have even said maybe Saturn might get his power removed from him if Eam really is the one that, like, handed it all out. Like, you have failed me, J. Garcia Saturn. I will now take your power. And he, like, suck the ability out of Saturn, and then he turns into, like the 800 years of time just hit him like a truck, and he's just like, no! And he just, like, fades away into dust on the floor. That would actually be perfect. That would be great. All right, like, considering what he did to Kuma and Bonnie and everybody and Ginny, him turning into, like, the end of Zombie Island where he just turns into a skeleton and then dust on the floor, that would be perfect, right? And then he might be able to, like, give his power to somebody else. Just like, I will take the power away from you, Saturn, and I will give it to another celestial dragon. I'll give it to Garling, or I'll give it to Shanks' hot sister. And we need a woman in the Gorosei, you know? It's like, maybe, I don't know. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, there we go. That's cool. That's neat. All right, nice. All right, so yeah, Saturn is no longer a Gorosei. He's now no longer alive, and Garling has took his place. A lot of people were bringing this up, like, you know, oh, hey, Saturn failed a lot of ways, and other people were like, well, no, Saturn really has it. You can't really put the blame on Saturn here. It's like, well, you gotta put the blame on someone, and Ian was like, yeah, it's Saturn. Saturn, sorry, you are the weakest link. Goodbye. All right, and I'm looking forward to see how the interaction between the Gorosei and Garling is going to go. Garling's going to get a new title. If Garling gets a new title, then that means that all of the other Gorosei, that's not their, like Venus or Venus, Juro, and like Mars and everything, that's not like their original names. Like, there's some other names that they were given, like, titles later. Because they're the 5 elder planets, and they're named after planets, but Garling isn't. So that's going to be a thing. We'll see how that works, right? Hey guys, editing teching here. Just wanted to pop in really quick for something that I forgot to bring up. I am going to be making a whole video about this, but just wanted to address it here. It seems very clearly that it's not a devil fruit ability. I mean, this was Eam taking away Saturn's abilities. Saturn's immortality, Saturn's ability to turn into the Ushioni, like the giant spider demon, his poison abilities. All that stuff was power that Eam gave him. And Eam now takes it back. All right? So it doesn't seem to be like a devil fruit ability. It seems like Eam, maybe, I really don't think Eam has a power and his ability is to give other people abilities. I think Eam is just like the, you know, Mother Ocean, Mother Nature, like a god that hates devil fruits and shares their power with the Gorosei. And so another question is, if, you know, Eam is taking the power away from Saturn and giving it to Garling, is Garling going to be able to transform into the Ushioni like the same way that Saturn did, or is Saturn, like Garling, going to have a different form? I would actually hope Saturn gets the new Saturn. I would hope that Garling gets a new form that does not look like a giant spider, because that just, like, for diversity and everything like that. It's very similar to, like, Father in Full Metal Alchemist, how he can, like, distill part of his body and his being and give it to, you know, create the homunculi and, like, greed, and then he takes it away from greed and creates another greed. So, yeah, it's kind of like that. I'll be making a whole video breaking this down, but, yeah, let me know down below what do you think about that. Like, if, you know, the abilities are devil fruit abilities. Like, I don't know how you could consider them devil fruit powers still if Eam is able to just do stuff like that and just kill them, take away their power at will. So, yeah, but let me know if Garling's going to get a different form or if he's going to be a giant spider. Well, anyway, we cut to the last couple of pages of the chapter, and we're not done with all the excitement yet, because we got another big one. We see Punk Records floating on an island cloud out at sea. Like, it's no longer by Egghead, it is now floating away on the wind, all right? It is probably a few miles away from Egghead at this point. And we do not see them because their bodies were destroyed, but we hear Shaka, Atlas, Pythagoras, and Edison! He made it through, ladies and gentlemen. I guess Atlas is alive too. Whatever. Shock is cool. Shock is neat. Pythagoras is alright. He's okay. He's alright. You know, don't really have strong opinions one way or the other for Pythagoras. But anyway, Edison! He's alive. So yes, the Vegapunk satellites, who they really were, existed in the brain, existed in Punk Records, because they're all Vegapunk, right? And Vegapunk's brain survived. So their bodies might have been destroyed, but their personalities are still there, and they're all communicating with one another while they're part of the brain. Like, the brain is, like, communicating with different parts of itself, I guess. So they're talking about how it was unfortunate they weren't able to move the entire lab, like the command room and everything, and the power station. So the mother flame is still on the island. That part's still there. The only part they were able to move was the upper part of the lab, which was Punk Records in the brain. They also mentioned that the signal reaches across the globe. Now that's important. We were waiting for that, because, like, if Punk Records goes too far from Egghead, can the other Vegapunks connect to it? Like, how does this work? York can still connect to it. Lilith will most likely be able to connect with it as well. Because Vegapunk, remember, was setting this up to be the internet. He was setting this up to be a global connection. So yeah, the signal on this thing is strong enough to reach across the entire planet. So York can still access it. I don't know why they can't just lock her out or remove the, you know, the code for her or something. And the only way you can change it is if you're in the Punk Records itself and she's not. But they mention, hey, you know, that she can still connect to this, but at least, and they have stealth mode and stuff like that. There should be ways for them to hide stuff from York, because they control Punk Records, but they're talking about it like, she'll still be able to connect with it. There's nothing we can do about that. It's like, I feel like there should be something you could do about that. Then again, York is also a Vegapunk, so she might make a device to get into it as well. So she has the brilliance as they all have, so yeah. But at least we're not giving it to her on a silver platter. At least we're not just handing her Punk Records, right? And they also bring up, like, I guess we have nothing left to do but just to keep the brain safe for as long as we can until humanity has a way of accessing it. It'll probably be at least 500 years. So Shaka is really just not very optimistic about this. He's like, well, I guess we're just floating in the sky for a few centuries until the rest of humanity catches up with our science. It'll probably be about 5 centuries or so. I don't think it'll be that. I think it'll be shorter than that because, you know, Lilith is still around and, you know, the Vegapunks are still here, right? Yeah, they used a special kind of roaming cloud. I think it might be the same type of cloud that the cloud drifting penalty exists on Skypiea, where they put the St. Brice on that cloud and it floated around for a few centuries before the cloud finally dissolved. So I think they mentioned the same type of cloud here, like it's the same kind of cloud from the drifting clouds, right? So there's like, yeah, and we can't build anything though. I mean, we don't have the factory anymore. We don't have the lab. We don't have any research funding. We got no money up here, you know? We're just floating on a cloud. That's all we're doing. So I guess we just got to leave it to the other partners and the other people in the world, the other scientists. We just got to leave it up to them because we can't really do much of anything. Meanwhile, they construct a new body. So if you wanted a 7th Vegapunk, or I guess a 7th satellite, an 8th Vegapunk, you got one, all right? Because on Punk Records is also a room that has all of the spare parts for the rest of the satellites. So we just see a long hallway filled with, like, a bunch of York's, like, torsos, and Edison's heads, and Lilith's heads, and, like, Atlas's face, and arms and legs, and all sorts of things, just in, like, it's like a really it's kind of freaky to, like, walk through this, I'm sure. Like, you're just walking through a corridor of just, like, legs and arms and body parts and shit like that. That also, I guess, confirms that even the Vegapunks, and I guess we already could have known this, but even the Vegapunks that were looking more human, like Lilith and Atlas, you know, and York herself, they're all still robots. They're all just mix and match, like, you know, because we see Lilith's head here, like a copy of Lilith's head. So if Lilith had her head destroyed, she could just, like, you know, just do that, right? So, yeah. Not organic, you know, not organic, just ahead. They're robots, right? I guess that's how it goes, right? So, you'd think that because they have all these extra parts, you'd think they would be able just to make a new Shaka, a new Edison, Pythagoras, and Atlas, because it seems like they have all the pieces for that. There could just be, you know, 4 new bodies, you know, but no, they don't do that. What they do instead is they take a, like, they're like a chimera. They take a bunch of different parts from all the Vegapunks and throw them together into one, which I think is just funny. So they have Shaka's body, his chest, his torso, his legs are Shaka. The right arm is Pythagoras. The left arm is Atlas, which is huge, so it's super disproportionate to the rest of the body. And then the head is Edison. It's Edison's head. And they're all speaking in the same body. They're just making one body that they're all speaking through at the same time. And they're just like, how do we look? Oh, well, we look completely bonkers, I'll tell you what. Oh, man, do you guys... Shaka's like, do you not like my proportions? It's just like, whatever, it's gonna be fun, right? They also mention, like, let's toss out all the spare York parts. Let's take all these parts from York and just throw them out, right? I'm picturing somewhere in the Grand Line, or somewhere in the, you know, the West Blue or the North Blue, there's an island, right? And there's a guy on the island, and he's like, the crops are not coming in or something, and he's praying to God, and he's like, oh God, please, Mother Nature, in your infinite wisdom, please grant me a blessing so my crops will grow. York's like body just collapses, like just her body, just her legs and her chest. I don't know what this, and then her leg, and then her arm, and then her head, and then her head, and then her head, and it's just, oh, I don't know what you're trying to tell me, I don't know what to do. That would be funny. That would be funny. All right. So, the new Vegapunk, the Chimera being Vegapunk, takes out a Dendenmushi and is just like, come in, Weatheria. Haradis, are you there? This here's Vegapunk. And it's like, Vegapunk? And this is Haradis from Weatheria, where Nami trained. Vegapunk, I thought you died! News of my death was greatly exaggerated. You know, that kind of thing, right? So it would make sense that Vegapunk was in talks with Haradis, the weather scientist. Haradis is like 90-something years old. He's older than Vegapunk, right? He's been traveling the world in Weatheria for like, I don't know, like 60 years or some shit, right? Weather science is the best science. So he's traveling around in Weatheria. They're in the sky. It's like, hey man, it's been a while since we had some tea and just hung out, you and me. Well, I'm on a floating cloud right now. You're on a floating cloud. Why don't you swing the old Weatheria by and we'll have a beer? You know, it's just like, okay, so that's awesome, actually. I love the fact that they're going to be hanging out with Haradis and the Weather Wizards on Weatheria. I love those characters, and I would love to see them again. You know, and so Weatheria is maybe going to join up with Punk Records and make a bigger island cloud, and then the Weather Wizards will help them out or something. Like, that's really cool. That's a really cool plot twist. I love that, Oda. So, last scene of the chapter, we cut to the Kamabakka Queendom, where the revolutionaries are writing down everything from the message. So they're taking in all the information. They're like compiling all the info that was taken during the message that Vegapunk broadcasted. I'm sure there was like somebody like, write this down. Somebody write this down. Somebody grab a pen. You know, just like Ivankov's like, oh, you know, hee-ho. Okay, everyone start writing down what this is. Who has the recording? Somebody have the recording of the Dendenmushi, or somebody play this back, please, right? So they're compiling all the info. We see the vice captains there. We see Koala there. Revolutionary commanders, Ivankov, Morley, Bellobetti, Karasu, Lindbergh. They're all there. Sabo's there. Dragon is there. They're all compiling info, right? And they're like, okay, the Void Century covered up a massive war, which is still going on today, and it culminated in the ancient weapons that were they then created that still exist now. And it plunged the world 200 meters deeper into the ocean. But not only that, whoever claims the One Piece will not just become king of the pirates, they will also somehow, wield this devastating power for themselves. So it's like that's like the summary, the Spark Note version of Vegapunk's message. It's like, war happened, the world sunk 200 meters, or the ocean level rose 200 meters, and whoever finds the One Piece will have access to these ancient weapons, will be able to have the ability to destroy the world all over again. Okay, so that's the basic idea, right? Bellobetti is like, we can't let that happen. The world will sink all over again, and that's when Sabo is like, you know, that explains why the celestial dragons are living on Marijois on top of the Red Line, which is the highest point in the world. Not including the Sky Islands, of course, but that's like the highest point you could set up like a permanent settlement like on the Earth, right? So, something else, this is crazy. I didn't expect this twist. Honestly, like as a geography nut, this is crazy. Ivankov is like, yes, that's true. Also, we have the 4 giant bridges that are being built in the world. It wasn't just Tequila Wolf. It was Vodka Wolf, Rum Wolf, and Bourbon Wolf. Honestly, should have seen that one coming, right? You know what I mean? It wasn't just tequila. So tequila's from Mexico. Vodka's from Russia, obviously. Bourbon is like, I think it's a United States, like an American creation. And rum. What country's rum from? Rum. You know, I think like the Caribbean, right? Like Barbados. I think that's where that's from. Okay. I looked this up yesterday. I don't just automatically know where rum is from. I looked this up yesterday. I was just trying to remember. But I think it comes from like Barbados, like the Caribbean and areas around there. Anyway, so yeah, this is something interesting for a number of different reasons. Number one, there are 4 giant bridges in the world that have been under construction for the last 700 years. We know about Tequila Wolf in the east. Considering there's 4, probably one for each of the east, each with the 4 blues, East Blue, West Blue, North Blue, South Blue, probably in an attempt for the government, for the Tenryubito way back in the day, to try to connect the entire world through bridges that only, of course, the Tenryubito would then use. Obviously, you know, obviously they wouldn't let anyone use these bridges, but that would be a way for the Tenryubito to still get around. So probably make this giant bridge network that eventually connects to the red line, and then if one of the Tenryubito was like, I want to travel to the South Blue, well, it's flooded. Well, I'll take the bridge then. You know, that's probably the idea, right? And it's been so long that most people don't even remember these bridges, why they began their construction. And the Tenryubito, by the way, the Tenryubito right now don't know anything about the world flooding, because we saw that with like a few of the celestial dragons. They were like, Void Century, what's that? Like, they have no idea what this is even about, right? So they've even kind of forgotten. Like the Gorosei remember. I'm sure Garling might know, but yeah, the other people don't. The other Tenryubito have no idea. So also a few chapters ago, when we cut over to Tequila Wolf, we thought it was Tequila Wolf, where we saw that guy like whipping a slave. We assumed like, oh, Tequila Wolf is back up and running again. Didn't that place get busted by the revolutionaries? And they're back up in operation again? Man, that really sucks. No, that's probably a different bridge. That's probably Vodka, Rum, or Bourbon Wolf in the North, South, or West Blues that we saw. It probably wasn't the same place in the East. Although I think it looked like the same guy. I don't know. Maybe he got transferred to a different bridge. I don't know. He's like, all right, the revolutionaries busted up Tequila Wolf. All right, well, you can transfer to Rum Wolf. It's like, whatever. Also, the place when Odin was on Roger's crew and he was traveling around the world, he witnessed a giant bridge. That might have not have been Tequila Wolf. That might have been Vodka Wolf. So there's 4 of these bridges all over the world, probably in the 4 blues. That's a cool piece of information. I'm going to make a whole video about that for sure. So anyway, Karasu's there. He's like, ah, yes, all the pieces are falling into place. And all the Revolutionary Army commanders concur, and they're like, ah, yes, indeed. You know, you took the words right out of my mouth. And then the last scene of the chapter. It wouldn't be complete without Dragon looking east. We see him. Dragon is literally looking east as the sun is rising. He is confirmed to be looking east in this chapter. Dragon is like, holy shit, guys. Wars, ancient weapons, the world flooding, giant bridges, slavery. We got to do something about this. I'm going to go look east. That's what he did, canonically. So he goes to look east as the sun rises. Vegapunk, among those who you heed your warning, many will act out of self-interest, not peace. Like, there's going to be global chaos from this. There's going to be people, like looting and just grabbing a bunch of, like, oh, I don't want to die! You know, there's going to be people trying to grab, like, habitable land. There's going to be countries invading other countries. There's going to be people, it's like, you live on top of the hill, we're going to kill you and take your house, we don't want to die! You know, like, that's going to be, it's going to be bedlam. It's going to be chaos all over the world. So Dragon is like, we got to hurry and achieve victory for the Revolutionary Army, for our cause, before the entire world just, like, they just, like, are at each other's throats here. Even the civilians are trying to scramble to find habitable land. So Dragon realizes, like, Vegapunk basically, he pushed him. He has to do the revolution now. There's no more setup. There's no more building. There isn't just any more staring off into the east leisurely, Dragon, like you have been for the last 20 goddamn years, right? It's time for action. It's like you pushed my hand. You forced my hand, Vegapunk. We gotta go. We gotta go now and start the revolution. There's no other way around this, because the world is just going to be at each other's throats otherwise, you know, and so many people are going to die. So we got to do it now, all right? And that's the end of the chapter. An era of chaos dawns. Okay. Well, that was an intensive chapter. We have a lot of stuff to go in with that, you know. Doberman gets shot. That's the big one right there. The Vegapunks are alive, although we didn't see the Stella in the speech bubble. I mean, the Stella is probably the records itself. I'm just saying we didn't see Vegapunk Stella in the thing, so we will probably hear him, like, talk, like, later. But even if we don't, like, the Vegapunks are all still alive, so that's the thing. Like, maybe Vegapunk's... No, I don't really see Vegapunk's, like, main Stella consciousness going away. His Stella wasn't in his physical body that was, like, stabbed by Kizaru. It was in the brain. That's where his consciousness is. It's a brain. You know, unless though, you know, souls exist in One Piece, so maybe, I don't know, how does the soul factor into this? I have no idea. Right, so anyway, yeah, that's a whole thing. Garling is the new member of the Gorosei. Saturn got kicked out, got sucked dry by Im, and the revolutionaries are beginning the revolution. That was, waiting for that for a while. Okay, so this is it. Thanks for watching the video, everybody. No break next week. Gonna get right back to it. We're probably gonna cut around to see what the world is happening, considering Dragon brought up, like, chaos and bedlam throughout the entire world. We're probably gonna see the immediate aftermath of that. So I don't know if we're gonna cut back to the Strats next chapter. I doubt we will. But eventually we will get to Elbaf in like a chapter or two, I think. So yeah, look forward to that. Thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Teching Stark signing out. Winter is coming.